What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Ralph's Real Review, where today we are going over Robin Hood. And if you're not familiar with what we're doing on the channel, essentially we're going through every single Walt Disney animated and Pixar film and ranking them among 7 different categories in order to try to come up with a definitive list as to where these movies stand amongst each other. If you are interested in that content, I encourage you to like and follow, subscribe, do all the things across all of our channels. On YouTube, I do the real reviews, which are long form reviews, and then I also upload the rapid reviews after I upload them on TikTok, which is at Ralph's Real Review. So, without further ado, let's get into Robin Hood. I will say I'm not too familiar with the actual story of Robin Hood outside of rob from the rich in order to give to the poor, and that's what this Robin Hood essentially does. The short of the story is that there is a prince named Prince John, and he sent his brother off to fight some sort of war, and he kind of rules in his place. But Prince John is kind of a jerk, and Robin Hood is robbing from him in order to give back to the poor people who he taxes too much. He loves this other fox named, I think her name is Maid Miriam, something like that. Yeah, and they fall in love, and he has to overcome Prince John, and he does, and that's pretty much it. In the animation department, I do have Robin Hood at 16th, which is right below Bambi and right above Melody Time, which is honestly a pretty bad ranking. I think the issue for me, and I'm going to keep coming back to this theme throughout the course of this review, there's so much recycled in this movie. And, Disney movies, this isn't going to be the first time that I say this, nor will it be the last. Disney tended to take parts of animation from other movies and reuse them in later movies. And, that's something that I know that they do, um, but it was never so blatant. And I feel like in this movie, there were multiple examples where it just felt blatant. On top of that, I didn't think that the animation had any stunning things happen at all. So I do have it pretty low there, right beneath Bambi at 16. When it comes to storytelling, I do have Robin Hood at 13th, which is just behind Snow White and just above Alice in Wonderland. And honestly, I feel like that's exactly where it belongs amongst those movies. I feel like story wise, it's nothing egregious, but it's nothing too engaging either. I feel like I can go either way with all three of those movies. I think having them sandwiched between the two, I think what puts it above Alice in Wonderland is the fact that Alice in Wonderland does kind of feel a little bit like an anthology. It has a lot of things going on that seem disjointed and disconnected in terms of serving one, moral of the story. Whereas Robin Hood does feel more like a moving narrative. So because of that, I do have it above Alice in Wonderland, right behind Snow White. Again, you can flip them if you want to. I think my thing with enjoying Snow White a little bit more than Robin Hood was that the story is just so classic and iconic. And Robin Hood is one of those things where it's some people's favorite. It's not mine, so I have it there at 13. When it comes to the characters, I do have Robin Hood at 15th, right behind the Three Caballeros and right in front of Fun and Fancy Free, which again is pretty low for a movie this late in the game to be between anthology films. I think my big issue with Robin Hood was Robin Hood in of himself is a good enough character. Maid Marian, I'm correcting myself from earlier. I think it said Miriam. Her name is Maid Marian. She's fine in of herself too. A lot of their best characters were kind of just takeaways from other movies. For example, I think Little John, not Prince John, but Little John. Little John was Baloo. I mean, it essentially was like they copy and pasted Baloo down to the voice actor, I believe, and put him in this movie. And I felt the same way with his pet snake. His snake isn't Ka, but when you're watching it, it just feels like Ka, right? I think his name was Hiss or Sir Hiss, something like that. So a lot of their characters felt like ripoffs. Their two main characters were fine in their own right. I mean, they have a bunch of cute animals, which again, if you're just looking for cute animals, go watch Bambi, which I have a little bit higher on the list. I just felt like again there was some ripping off of characters, specifically I guess from the Jungle Book, and then copy and pasting them into here, which knocks it a few points for me. At the Disney factor, another 15 for Robin Hood, behind the Aristocats and above the Sword and the Stone. Once again, kind of interchangeable with those three movies. I think that Robin Hood is going to lose points for me in terms of lacking originality. You do have a bunch of cute animals, so does the Aristocats. But outside of that, there's really nothing that makes this feel too much like a Disney movie. Again, I know that some people do have a nostalgia bug for this movie, so that's their thing. To me, the most Disney thing about this movie is A, the animals, and B, the amount of sampling that they took from other Disney movies. It's kind of just like it's like what Wish did, kind of. But I don't look at Wish and say that that's a good homage to Disney movies, nor do I look at Robin Hood. It looks like they were low on a budget and just copied things. So Disney factor 15th. When it comes to music, I am a little bit higher on Robin Hood. I have it at 12th here, again, right behind the Three Caballeros and right ahead of Fantasia. When it comes to Robin Hood, I feel like there is one song that I simply couldn't stand. The opening song, I don't necessarily like or dislike it, but it's catchy enough that I was singing it the rest of the movie. So then, ahead of Fantasia for having an original song that I appreciated, but behind the Three Caballeros because I just like their theme song better. It really is as simple as that. At the box office, Robin Hood just misses the top 10. It is behind Peter Pan at about 226, a little under $226.7 million, dollars, again adjusted for inflation. And it does actually beat the Aristocats, which came out beforehand, by a little bit as well. Not much to report here. This movie had to do well financially for Disney. Some people in the aftermath of Walt's death wondered if Disney could still release theatrical hits box office wise, and this movie proved that they could. This movie made enough money. Last I remember, because I made these rankings about a week ago, I don't remember if Robin Hood had too many re-releases. It might have had one or two, but for the most part, it stood on its own. It didn't have as many re-releases as like the Aristocats per se. So at 11 for Robin Hood. And then finally, historical significance, Robin Hood again, 15th, right behind The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, and right ahead of the Aristocats. Again, not too much special for this movie in terms of first or last or anything crazy. Some people will look at this and say that this is the first movie that was completely produced outside of the influence of Walt Disney, because it was greenlit after his death. I think when it comes to putting it behind The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, I think that really the big thing for that is always going to be that there is a ride that still exists to this day for Ichabod and Mr. Toad, specifically Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. And the Headless Horseman, I don't know which version of the Headless Horseman is the iconic one, but this is one of the versions, right? So there is some relevancy to that movie even to this day as an anthology film. I think that that's impressive. Robin Hood to me doesn't hold that. I feel like there's a way better version of this movie with better versions of the characters in the Jungle Book. I feel like, again, I understand that for some people this is one of their favorites, if not their favorite Disney movie. I've heard Disney historians say this is their favorite Disney movie. It doesn't do it for me. I don't understand the historical significance of this movie. It was a box office success when Disney needed a box office success, and I will give it that. But this movie doesn't feel too much like a Disney movie. It doesn't do any of the things that Disney does at its best, in my opinion. So yeah, I have it there at 15th, right above the Aristocats. At the end of all that, where do we have Robin Hood in our tier list? I'm gonna obviously, looking at the rankings, you could tell that it's not something I'm going to say is for everybody or even movie fans. I think that whatever you're looking for in this movie, you could find better somewhere else. So the question becomes, and I don't also, let's get this one out of the way. I don't think it's completely skippable either. I think that there's enough to like in this movie, that I would recommend it for some sort of Disney fan. But the question is it a typical Disney fan or a diehard Disney fan? And I think, for me, there's not much. If this movie was a little bit higher in historical significance, I would raise it up another level to Disney fans. But for now, I'm going to put it in diehards. And my thinking is the only, like, again, if there's anything that I'm trying to get you to get out of this movie, I'm going to point you to other movies. The only thing that I would point you to Robin Hood to see as a diehard Disney fan is look at how they reused animation from this movie and that movie and then put it into this movie. I would look and say, hey, look at this voice actor. He voiced Baloo and now he voiced Little John. Like, you'd have to really be into the weeds for me to recommend this movie to you. And I think when I'm putting it, because I do try to keep these tiers obviously, vertical, but then horizontally, I'm trying to keep them in a certain order as well. And I think this movie fits perfectly right between the Aristocats and Bambi. I think the diehards are going to look at this tier list and be like, these diehard movies are potentially better than Disney fan movies. But I think when talking to a casual audience and trying to recommend these things, I think Fantasia, The Aristocats, Bambi, these are movies that I believe hold a special place in the hearts of diehard Disney fans. And I don't think that a general audience is going to appreciate them to the same level. So when I look at the Aristocats compared to a Bambi, I feel like Robin Hood fits right in the middle of that perfectly. Fantasia and the Aristocats, I could see someone putting up a level. Bambi, I could see a purist putting up a level or two, but I don't think that movie, even as a Disney fan, is enjoyable for even me to go back and watch. So I look at Robin Hood as kind of like the middle there, where I could watch it, I could not. I don't love the idea of having to go back and watch it, but I could. The Aristocats, I would definitely watch again. Bambi, I wouldn't want to watch again. So Robin Hood kind of fits in the middle there perfectly. So yeah, that's our tiers. If you guys have not yet, that's gonna do it for the video today. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, share. Like I said, we're getting close to 2025, and I got a lot of movies coming up next year. So right now, I think going into my birthday week, we are looking at what's coming out this week. Gladiator 2, I got to see Red 1, Wicked, Moana 2. There's a lot happening in the next week or so. And going into 2025, I'm going to be reviewing all movies, not just Disney movies. I'm going to continue this series until it's done. But in 2025, we're going to expand into full movie reviews. So if you are interested in following that content, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Share this to your friends who are also movie fans. And let's try to continue to keep our base going. We are getting very close to 50 subs on YouTube, which is our current goal. So if you could help me reach that, I would greatly appreciate it. Ralph's Review on Instagram, Ralph's Rapid Review on TikTok, Ralph's Real Review on YouTube. And that's it for me. Thanks, guys.